Hello for this short tutorial on how to load a scalpel and unload it safely. Again, for the anatomy labs and especially our A&P labs, scalpels are not really necessary and they're tools that require quite a bit of skill. So again, we don't usually recommend, unless you have extraordinary circumstances like a particularly thick skin on the cat, that you actually need something very sharp in order to do the operation. Then we use scalpels, but you have to be extremely careful with them. This is the sharpest object a person will probably ever hold in their lifetime. It'll cut you faster than you can think. You won't even feel the pain because it'll sink deep fast. And as you're using it as a dissection tool, it cuts indiscriminately unless you have the right amount of experience to operate a scalpel so that you can only cut what you're seeing and not what's underneath it. I don't recommend it for any of the dissections for the A&P labs. Scissors, various scissors, little snip scissors and skinning scissors are much more favorable to a successful completion of the dissection. But should you need to operate a scalpel, there is a proper way to load it so you do not get cut, and there's a proper way to unload it. First of all, we have the scalpel handle. Okay, we use typically number fours or number sixes. It has this reduced area right here where the scalpel blade is going to be attached, and pay attention to that bevel that's right there. That bevel is going to line up with the back end of the blade itself. So again, the two bevels must meet each other in parallel. Again, the scalpel blade has, if I can show it there, a little groove going around the tip. That's where the scalpel blade slides on and locks in. And again, the other side is all smooth. We don't have any of those bevels that you can see at all. So this is the back side of the blade. This is the front side of the blade. When you go to get a scalpel blade, it already comes in a foil packet. This is a safety packet. It's designed to be able to open up even if you have gloved hands. There is on one side this little two pieces of paper that you can peel apart. You just grab it like this and peel it down. That exposes the back half of the blade. Again, you would take the two foil pieces and wrap it down around it to protect your grip on the blade. And the business part of the blade is now still concealed within the foil. And so you're not exposing yourself to the possible risk of doing that. And you're protecting your fingers. I'm going to pull it out a little further so that you can see it better. But notice again the bevel edge. That's going to be our important point of this, of how we line it up correctly. When I pull it out a little bit more so you can see the opening, you see it's almost like a keyhole shape. And what that's going to allow us to do is to push the end of the scalpel blade into that groove that runs down the center of the tip of the scalpel handle itself. So again, these indented areas are going to line up and slide against each other. But important that the bevel that you see here lines up parallel to this. So right now I have it incorrect. So I tear my handle around so that now it faces each other. So when I snap this in all the way, that bevel will rest, the bevel of the blade will rest against the bevel of the handle. Again, to do this, I'm going to slide these two together. I'm trying to find the right appropriate way of doing it. You come in from the side that you're going to do this with, in through the larger opening, and then line up the two pieces here so that it can slide down. So I can get a grip on that narrower piece of the blade. I'm sliding it down the groove until it snaps. And once it snaps, the handle is now locked. I can take that off, and now I have an outfitted scalpel blade. Again, you can see it's extremely sharp. You can see the glistening edge of the blade right there. And again, it's very, very sharp. So again, you have to be extremely careful. Whenever someone's using a scalpel on a specimen, there is only one set of hands in the field of area that the scalpel is being deployed. So again, if you're working with partners, you don't have your partner hold their fingers next to where you're about to cut. If you're going to have to hold something for someone, get a locking forceps and grip it with that so you keep your fingers away from the business end of this. Also, when somebody's using a scalpel, you're not reaching in front of them. I had a student do that one time. The guy was coming in with the scalpel, and at the same time, his partner reached and went right into his forearm. Again, this will cut extremely deep. And so again, we don't want accidents to occur. To properly take them off, you have to respect that blade, okay, that it's going to be very sharp. So you never take your fingers onto it. You don't try to peel it off with just your fingers, try to pull this thing back off. Never do that. If something gets stuck, you put it on the wrong way, tell the instructor. We'll use hemostats to take it off carefully so you don't get cut. But we have these little disposal boxes. Again, they're a one-time thing, and it's pretty self-evident how you do it. You see there's a picture of the blade right there on the surface, okay? And all you have to do is line up the blade the same way the picture is, okay? Now, again, what you're really doing in that lineup is that I'm facing the dimpled edge here that has that bevel up on top, okay? And what we're going to do is when we slide this into this groove that's right here, okay, I'm going to slide that all the way, and notice that the handle now is inside there, and that little piece of tongue of the blade that comes up, that narrow piece is going to drop down into that slot. And so when I push that in there and then I squeeze down on the lid, I get it all lined up, I'm going to be holding on to the blade, and that automatically pulls the back end of the blade up away from the blade. So when I slide it back out, it disappears and it's now inside this box. And so your hands have never been next to the blade so you can be cut. So again, never touch a blade with your fingers. Keep your hands out of the field of study that's being conducted, and be careful with these blades. And again, when you're done with this, the proper way to store these blades is without the blade on. So again, when you're done with that blade, it should go into the disposal box, and then this goes into where we keep the handles. Do not put sharp instruments up in a box. We're putting them in cups and holding them up. We don't want a scalpel blade sticking straight up. So the next person comes down, tries to get a scalpel handle, plunges their fingers right on top of a naked blade. The same thing is true with the dissecting needles that you see in the department. They're actually pithing needles. But again, they're just long needle-like instruments with a handle on top. We hardly ever use those in dissection because they're too sharp and they tend to pull fibers apart on muscles. So again, I put them away because they're not really something we're supposed to be using. But again, people are using them inappropriately, and then when they're cleaning them off, they're putting them needle side up in the dish, in that little container we keep them in. And again, that's not the proper way they should be stored. They should be needle side down, the handle up. You want to always present this as something that the handle goes first. It's sort of like the old Boy Scout stuff. When we hand a blade to someone else, you hand it off like this. So you put the handle first, you let them grab it, they say thank you, and you let go. The thank you is an acknowledgement that now I have control of the sharp object. Again, when I teach cadaver lab, we have to do this because we're sharing blades often within one session. So again, it's sometimes that we don't unload them in between users using them. So again, it's something just to get used to. Again, like think of an operating room. The nurse doesn't hand the blade scalpel first to the doctor. You hand it handle first so that they can get a good grip on it, and then you release control to them so that they have responsibility over the sharp object. All right, so I'm Dr. Serino. This is Misericordia University, and again, hope that helps for the anatomy labs.